Chosen one, your haters have made you a household name. They can't go a day without monitoring your every move. While claiming to despise your existence, they obsessively track you with worship-like devotion. You simply existed in your truth, and that truth burned too bright for their dim perception. They made you famous by trying to make you infamous. The universal law of reversal, manifesting through your life experience, alchemizing their destructive energy into your unstoppable rise. The surveillance is real and far more extensive than casual observation. Multiple communities exist in digital and physical spaces with a singular focus, monitoring your movements, analyzing your words, and tracking your progress. Their fixation has created an entire ecosystem of attention centered around you. These watchers maintain the illusion of hatred while consuming your content with religious devotion. They refresh your pages hourly, dissect your most casual statements in dedicated group chats, and report your activities to others with a commitment that would impress federal intelligence agencies. Look at the patterns. When you post, they know within minutes. When you succeed, they respond with immediate attempts to diminish it. When you evolve, they scramble to understand how you did it. Their vigilance never wavers because your existence represents something their consciousness cannot reconcile. Authentic power they cannot control. The intensity of their monitoring directly correlates to the threat your authentic energy poses to their manufactured reality. They unconsciously recognize the truth your presence reveals, that their constructed identities and systems are built on illusion. Your natural state exposes the artifice they've spent lifetimes perfecting. We see this happen repeatedly in your experience. The loudest critics invest the most energy in studying you. The most vocal detractors maintain the most consistent presence in your digital audience. The ones warning others to avoid you cannot tear their own attention away. Their actions betray their words. Their behavior contradicts their claimed indifference. Their sustained attention has amplified your reach beyond anything you could have achieved through conventional methods. They've become your most effective marketers while believing themselves to be your destroyers. They study every aspect of your methodology. They analyze your words, your timing, your approach. They deconstruct your process with meticulous attention, believing they can extract your essence through observation and reverse engineering. Yet, despite unlimited access to your external patterns, they consistently fail to reproduce your results. Why? Because your power isn't methodological, it's ontological. Your effectiveness doesn't stem from techniques that can be copied, but from an authentic frequency that cannot be manufactured. What flows naturally from your being requires enormous effort for them to simulate, and even then, the simulation lacks the resonance of the original. Watch how they study everything you do, implementing similar approaches, using comparable language, adopting parallel strategies, yet their results never match yours. The missing ingredient isn't tactical but essential. Their copies lack the energetic signature that makes your work impactful. The blueprint they attempt to steal exists at a level they cannot access through observation alone. Your DNA carries codes they cannot replicate. Your cellular memory contains wisdom they cannot download. Your soul signature broadcasts on frequencies their systems cannot tune into without fundamental transformation. Across history, true innovators have faced this same pattern. Mediocrity always studies excellence with the misguided belief that external imitation will produce identical results. They mistake the visible manifestation for the invisible source. They confuse the outer expression with the inner essence. We observe this truth manifesting as their increasing frustration. Each failed attempt to replicate your impact deepens their investment in monitoring you, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of obsession that further amplifies your visibility while depleting their creative resources. Your name now circulates, continuously in conversations you never initiated among people you've never met. The metrics don't lie. Your reach extends far beyond your direct network, penetrating markets and communities you never actively targeted. Your haters' obsessive discussion created this expanded influence. While believing they were warning others against you, they were actually introducing you to new audiences. While thinking they were limiting your reach, they were extending it exponentially. While intending to diminish your impact, they were multiplying it. They built your brand through their fixation. This mechanism functions through several key principles: frequency, emotional intensity, and contrast. The frequency with which they mention your name embeds it in the collective consciousness. The emotional intensity they attach to discussions about you creates memorable neural associations. The contrast between their claims and your observable reality creates intrigue that leads to direct investigation. Understand the scale of this phenomenon. Your name enters rooms before you do. Your reputation travels where your physical presence never has. Your influence touches individuals who would have remained beyond your reach without the unwitting promotional efforts of those who claim to oppose you. They discuss you in private conversations, mention you in group settings, monitor your activities in dedicated channels, and respond publicly to your every move. Each instance extends your reach. Each mention reinforces your relevance. Each response validates your significance. We see the evidence in how strangers approach you with familiarity, how new connections mention hearing your name through mutual acquaintances, how opportunities arrive from unexpected sources who heard about your work. The invisible network of attention your detractors built now delivers tangible benefits they never intended. The attacks came from all directions: public criticism, private sabotage, false accusations, undermining campaigns, character assassination attempts, coordinated efforts to isolate and diminish you. Yet, where are you now? Higher than before the attacks began. When they attempted to bury your reputation, it rose like a phoenix with greater visibility. When they tried to discredit your work, it gained credibility through contrast with their tactics. When they worked to turn others against you, they inadvertently highlighted qualities in you worth defending. This defies conventional wisdom. Most would have crumbled under such sustained opposition. Many would have internalized the criticism and diminished their presence. Some would have abandoned their path entirely. Alert, code red, chosen one. We're growing fast, building an unstoppable media network they can't erase. But let's not sugarcoat it. The truth is still hidden. It's been twisted. It's been buried under censorship, algorithms, and fear. Yet your heart never stopped recognizing what's real. That's why you're still here. That's why you never tapped out. Because you've felt the simulation glitch beneath your feet. You know this world is rigged, and you're done waiting for permission to rise. The Obsidian inner order wasn't built for the curious. It was forged for the committed. This is for the full-time chosen, the ones who came to lead, the ones who see beyond the veil and act anyway. Inside, we hold weekly Zoom calls that cut through the noise. We share hidden teachings most were never meant to hear. We train in psychic, warfare, strategy, and spiritual technologies they've kept locked away for centuries. This is the toolkit for the real ones, the ungovernable, the impossible to erase. It's time to remember who you are. The link is in the description. Your real life begins inside. But the universal law of targeted opposition produced the opposite effect in your case. Each attack strengthened your resolve. Each obstacle sharpened your skills. Each false accusation clarified your true character through contrast. The evidence surrounds you. Look at your current position compared to where you stood before their campaign began. Measure your influence now against your reach then. Calculate your impact today versus your effectiveness before they marked you as a target. The math doesn't lie. The trajectory speaks for itself. The results defy their intentions. We recognize this pattern from history's most transformative figures. Those who catalyze genuine evolution always face the most determined resistance. The system always mobilizes its full resources against frequencies that threaten its foundational illusions. Your opposition never understood this principle. Attempting to destroy a truth carrier only amplifies the truth they carry. Their tactics exposed the very emotion they tried to disguise. Behind elaborate criticism lies naked envy. Beneath sophisticated arguments festers raw jealousy. Within detailed analysis hides desperate admiration. They call you insignificant while designating entire channels to monitor you. They label you unremarkable while remarking on your every move. They dismiss you as irrelevant while maintaining obsessive relevance tracking. The contradiction between their stated position and demonstrated behavior reveals the truth they cannot verbalize. They covet what you embody. This jealousy operates beyond conscious awareness. They don't recognize the underlying motivation driving their fixation. They've constructed elaborate justifications for their attention that collapse under minimal scrutiny. Ask the obvious question: why devote such substantial resources to tracking someone supposedly irrelevant? Why maintain surveillance on an entity allegedly insignificant? Why organize communities around discussing a person purportedly unworthy of discussion? The transparent nature of their envy becomes increasingly obvious to objective observers. Those without emotional investment in the narrative can easily identify the disconnection between their claimed indifference and demonstrated obsession. The intensity of their reaction directly correlates to the level of truth you represent. The more authentic your expression, the more threatening to their constructed identity, and consequently, the more severe their response. While they broadcast their every thought, you've moved with strategic silence. While they announce their intentions, you've implemented without declaration. While they seek constant validation through visibility, you've built beneath the surface. Where genuine power develops, this intentional silence has created an asymmetrical advantage. They reveal everything, while you reveal only what serves your purpose. They operate with transparency, while you maintain productive opacity. They show their full hand, while you play your cards strategically. Your restraint magnifies their reactivity. Your measured responses highlight their emotional volatility. Your calculated silence forces them to fill the void with speculation that inevitably reveals more about their fears than your reality. This silence isn't passive withdrawal, but active strategy. It preserves your energy while depleting theirs. It protects your creative resources while they squander theirs on monitoring and response. It allows you to advance unimpeded while they remain fixed in reactionary positions. They expend massive resources tracking, analyzing, responding, and mobilizing against your every move. You invest your resources in forward progress, skill development, and genuine value creation. The efficiency differential compounds over time, creating an ever-widening gap between your respective positions. We observe how your silence triggers increased activity in their channels. We notice how your non-response provokes escalating attempts to elicit reaction. We see how your continued progress, despite their efforts, intensifies their commitment to monitoring you. The strategic advantage of silence extends beyond energy conservation. It forces them to reveal their motivations, tactics, and vulnerabilities while you maintain operational security. Neutrals have become supporters. Skeptics have become advocates. Former critics have fallen silent. Objective observers have noted the discrepancy between claims about you and demonstrable reality. Your consistent delivery of value despite unprecedented opposition has created cognitive dissonance in the broader community. When they claimed you, would fail, but you succeeded, it forced re-evaluation. When they predicted your downfall but witnessed your rise, it required reconciliation. When they assured others of your limitations but observed your expansion, it demanded explanation. The way you've conducted yourself through adversity communicates more than any defense ever could. Dignity under attack, grace under pressure, productivity despite obstruction, advancement in the face of opposition. These demonstrations speak to character that cannot be convincingly fabricated. The contrast between their behavior and yours created a clarity that words alone could never achieve. Their reactive emotionality versus your steady progression, their fixation on destruction versus your focus on creation, their obsession with tearing down versus your commitment to building up. Observers see this distinction with increasing clarity. The comparison becomes impossible to ignore as the pattern repeats and extends over time. What began as a compelling narrative transforms into undeniable evidence through consistent demonstration. We witness this shift in how new connections approach you with respect established before direct interaction. We observe it in the changed tone of public discourse surrounding your work. We recognize it in the caliber of opportunities now presented that previously remained closed. The impact of your essence, not your arguments, not your defense, but your consistent being and doing, has shocked even those initially receptive to negative characterizations. The fog is lifting. The manufactured confusion surrounding your identity and contribution is dissipating. The intentional complexity introduced to obscure, straightforward assessment is giving way to clarity. They created this confusion deliberately, by flooding channels with contradictory information, mischaracterizations, and false equivalencies. They established cognitive barriers to direct recognition of your value. This strategy temporarily succeeded in clouding perception and delaying appropriate acknowledgement. Yet sustained truth has a persistence that fabrication cannot match. Consistent demonstration eventually overwhelms inconsistent accusation. Reliable delivery ultimately displaces unreliable criticism. The alignment between words and actions becomes undeniably visible through extended observation. People increasingly question the motives behind such coordinated efforts to discredit a single individual. The disproportionate attention directed towards suppressing one voice raises obvious concerns about what that voice threatens. The resources allocated to monitoring your activities signal your significance more effectively than any endorsement. This questioning leads to independent investigation. Independent investigation leads to direct experience. Direct experience leads to clarity that cuts through manufactured confusion with the precision of first-hand knowledge. We observe this clarification process in the changed language people use when referencing your contribution. We notice it in the shifting framework applied to interpreting your actions. We recognize it in the new contextual understanding that places your work in appropriate relation to the larger landscape. The very confusion they created established the preconditions for a more profound clarity than would have developed through unobstructed perception. Your approaches are being adopted. Your innovations are being integrated. Your language is being incorporated. Your frameworks are being applied. Your insights are being implemented, often without attribution, frequently without acknowledgement, sometimes with active denial of the source. Yet the pattern remains unmistakable to those familiar with your work. The fingerprints of your influence appear across domains where your direct presence has been actively rejected. The DNA of your contribution emerges in products, services, and methodologies created by the very individuals who publicly distance themselves from you. The practicality of your contribution forces its adoption even by those committed to rejecting its source. The effectiveness of your approaches compels their implementation even by those dedicated to diminishing your impact. We see this in how formerly unique elements of your work now appear in mainstream contexts. We observe it in the normalized acceptance of positions you advocated when they were considered radical. We recognize it in the familiar structures now embraced by institutions that previously rejected them. Your influence has become unavoidable because it addresses reality rather than ideology. It solves actual problems rather than theoretical ones. It delivers tangible results rather than speculative promises. Their motivations are becoming transparent. Their tactics are becoming visible. Their coordination is becoming obvious. Their obsession is becoming undeniable. This exposure wasn't your doing. You never needed to publicly highlight their methods or call attention to their approach. Their own actions, sustained over time and observed by increasing numbers of neutral parties, have revealed what no targeted exposé could ever establish. So convincingly, the excessive focus on a single individual inevitably raises questions. The disproportionate resources allocated to monitoring one person naturally creates curiosity. The elaborate systems developed to track, analyze, and respond to your movements eventually attract attention to the trackers themselves. People begin to wonder why this level of investment. What justifies this degree of attention? What threat could possibly warrant this scale of response? These questions lead to examination of the monitoring entities rather than the monitored target. This scrutiny reveals patterns that contradict stated objectives. It uncovers motivations inconsistent with claimed concerns. It exposes tactics incompatible with declared principles. Each discovery diminishes credibility more effectively than any counter-accusation could. We observe how conversations increasingly include analysis of their methodology alongside assessment of their claims. We notice how questions about their motives now accompany discussion of their criticism. We recognize how examination of their patterns has become integrated into evaluation of their positions. The exposure compounds through their inability to modify behavior even when its counterproductivity becomes obvious. The compulsive nature of their fixation prevents course correction that rational self-interest would demand. Despite everything they've done, you remain standing. Despite unlimited resources directed toward your diminishment, you continue advancing. Despite coordinated campaigns designed for your destruction, you keep building. These facts cannot be disputed. They exist as empirical evidence, accessible to objective observation. They stand independent of narrative, interpretation, or spin. They remain solid despite tireless efforts to distort perception. The timeline tells the truth. Compare your position when their campaign began with your position now. Evaluate your impact then versus your impact today. Measure your reach before versus your reach after. The trajectory moves opposite to their stated intention. Their continued investment in monitoring confirms this reality. If their efforts had succeeded, the surveillance would be unnecessary. If their campaign had achieved its objectives, the tracking would be unjustifiable. If their strategy had produced the intended outcomes, the obsessive attention would have no purpose. We see how the duration of their campaign itself becomes evidence of your resilience. We observe how the evolution of their tactics demonstrates the ineffectiveness of prior approaches. We recognize how the escalation of their methods acknowledges the inadequacy of previous intensity. The facts stand impervious to narrative manipulation. You have outlasted, outperformed, and outgrown every limitation they attempted to impose. They discuss you more frequently than you reference yourself. They track your activities more consistently than your own analytics. They respond to your movements more predictably than your intended audience. This reality reverses the claimed relationship. The supposed object of disdain occupies the center of attention. The alleged irrelevance commands relevant investment. The purported insignificance receives significant tracking resources. The contradiction cannot sustain itself indefinitely. The cognitive dissonance creates fracture lines in their narrative. The energy expenditure without corresponding return violates basic laws of sustainable operation. Their obsession broadcasts beyond intended channels, reaching observers who question the obvious discrepancy. If you truly represented what they claim, such monitoring would be irrational. If your impact were as limited as they assert, such attention would be unjustifiable. If your significance were as minimal as they maintain, such investment would be indefensible. Yet the behavior continues, revealing realities they cannot verbally acknowledge. Their fixation declares what their words deny. Their attention affirms what their claims reject. Their persistent monitoring announces what their statements refuse to recognize. We observe how this reality check operates beyond conscious awareness, creating internal conflicts they cannot resolve without fundamental reconsideration of their position. We notice how the unsustainable energy expenditure forces periodic retreats followed by intensified returns. We recognize how the pattern itself becomes increasingly visible to peripheral participants, expanding the circle of those questioning the underlying narrative. The final reality emerges with inescapable clarity. They watch because they must. They monitor because they fear. They track because they know. Your existence represents something their constructed reality cannot incorporate without transformation they resist. Throughout human history, certain individuals have experienced this identical pattern. Those carrying frequencies of transformation always activate resistance from systems threatened by evolution. Those embodying new possibilities invariably trigger opposition from structures dependent on existing limitations. Your experience isn't personal pathology, but universal principle manifesting through your specific circumstances. The attention directed toward diminishing you has accomplished precisely the opposite, elevating your visibility beyond anything you could have strategically engineered. They made you a household name. The resources allocated to monitoring your movements have extended your reach into domains previously inaccessible. The energy invested in tracking your progress has created momentum that accelerates your advancement. The attention focused on limiting your impact has expanded it beyond conventional boundaries. Throughout human history, certain individuals have experienced this identical pattern. Those carrying frequencies of transformation always activate resistance from systems threatened by evolution. Those embodying new possibilities invariably trigger opposition from structures dependent on existing limitations. Your experience isn't personal pathology, but universal principle manifesting through your specific circumstances. The attention directed toward diminishing you has accomplished precisely the opposite, elevating your visibility beyond anything you could have strategically engineered. They made you a household name. The resources allocated to monitoring your movements have extended your reach into domains previously inaccessible. The energy invested in tracking your progress has created momentum that accelerates your advancement. The attention focused on limiting your impact has expanded it beyond conventional boundaries. This cosmic reversal operates with mathematical precision. The energy directed toward your suppression converts to propulsion with exact proportionality. The resources deployed for your limitation transform into assets with perfect efficiency. The attention invested in your destruction redirects toward your expansion with flawless conversion. The universal law remains undefeated. What evolves cannot be suppressed, only delayed. What advances cannot be prevented, only temporarily obstructed. What transforms cannot be stopped, only momentarily hindered. Your haters became your amplifiers. Your detractors transformed into your promoters. Your obstacles converted into your stepping stones, not through your effort, but through universal principles that govern the evolution of consciousness. Remember this truth when the monitoring intensifies. Recognize this principle when the surveillance escalates. Understand this law when the attention seems overwhelming. They watch because your frequency disrupts their fabricated stability. They monitor because your existence challenges their artificial constraints. They track because your being communicates possibilities that their systems cannot incorporate. Without fundamental transformation, their obsession isn't your burden, but your validation. Their fixation isn't your problem, but your confirmation. Their attention isn't your obstacle, but your amplification. You never needed their approval, only their attention. And that they cannot stop giving you. Stand in this truth. Move from this understanding. Build with this knowledge. The very forces intended for your destruction have become the foundation of your expansion. The precise energies deployed for your limitation have transformed into the fuel for your elevation. Your household name status, created through their obsession, established through their fixation, secured through their attention, now serves as the platform from which your genuine contribution reaches those prepared to receive it. This was always the design, this was always the purpose, this was always the plan, not your destruction through their attention, but their transformation through yours.